Well, great. What a warm welcome, and welcome back to Policy Conference. As we heard in your introductions, both of you have had distinguished military careers. You've both been pilots in combat. And I want to start by asking each of you, I'll start with you, Senator McSally, how does that experience impact your work in Congress on national security and your support for Israel?
Well, first, thanks for having us here today. It's great. There's a couple of female combat veterans here working together on many issues in the Senate and in the House before. Well, I will say, first, I was deployed to the Middle East 5 times, and so I've seen firsthand the dangerous neighborhood that Israel is in. It's a long story, but I fought for 8 years to make sure that our U.S. servicewomen didn't have to wear burqas when off base in Saudi Arabia. I know firsthand, Israel is the only democracy in the region that protects human rights and minority rights.
Right. Thank
you. And those of us who serve, we understand the threat, I think, like many others don't. Maybe they understand it theoretically, but they've never actually been there. Look, I ran for Congress originally because I was tired of yelling at the television. I want to be a part of solving problems to keep our country safe, and in this case, make sure we protect our strong and faithful ally, Israel, in the region. And so we have, I think, unique perspectives and a unique approach. You know, we both served to protect America, to protect our way of life, to protect freedoms and our vital national security interests, and that includes in the region the protection of Israel.
Thank you. Senator Duckworth.
Well, you know, having served in the military for over 2 decades, I learned to take care of my troops first and foremost, making sure that I watch out for their well-being, their families' well-being. And that basic function of a military officer is something that I bring to Congress when I think about serving my entire state and my entire nation. And that means that we have to look at the totality of the whole issue. And for me, that means that I have to reach out across the aisle to my colleagues on the other side of the aisle to find ways to come together. And Israel, being a supporter of the United States, and us being a supporter of Israel, is one of those uniting things that can happen across the aisle. The fact of the matter is, Israel is the only true democracy in the Middle East, and it is something that we can come together on. And so we can then come together and talk about issues of national security, not just in terms of more tanks and guns and helicopters to the United States, but also talking about the fact that we do need to sell more defensive countermeasures to our ally in Israel to make sure that they can defend their own citizens. And let me just pause briefly and just say how much I am praying for the families and those who were affected by the rocket attack that happened today, the 7 injured. And of course, it's not just those who are injured, but know that we stand firmly with Israel.
The first bill taken up by the Senate this year, and I'll start with you, Senator Duckworth, was this S1, Strengthening America's Security in the Middle East Act of 2019. You voted for it, as did you, Senator McSally. Why? Why was that an important vote for you to take? And let's give her them both a round of applause for that vote.
Well, it was a hard vote for me to take, and it was an easy vote for me to take. The hard vote for me to take is there were issues in it that I thought had serious implications for First Amendment rights, but the totality of the bill was this. It is about strengthening America's ally with Israel. It provided for greater, more definitive support of Israel. It provided for support for Jordan. It provided for our own national security long term. And so for me, that was the easy vote to take, in that at the end of the day, it was about the totality of the bill, and the bill was much better for not just Israel, but also for the United States security.
Senator?
Yeah, well, let me say it was a very easy vote for me to take. We were codifying the MOU between us and Israel, and I will also say that I see that as the floor and not the ceiling of our strong partnership and support to Israel. Because the MOU wasn't quite as strong as I had hoped, but I really think for us to come together in a bipartisan way to codify that, make sure that they maintain their quantitative military edge, and that we're able to counter the BDS movement around the country and the world. So that legislation allowed states like Arizona, for example, they're working some additional legislation they did in the past. It was caught in the courts, but it allows them to choose to say, you know what, we're not going to do business with anybody who's a part of this BDS movement, and I thought it was really important for us to speak on that issue.
I want to turn to the topic of missile defense. Part of my family lives in central Israel. They were in the bomb shelter this morning when the rocket fell in Mishmeret, about 2 miles from where they live. Senator McSally, part of the Iron Dome system is built in Arizona. You know how critical Iron Dome has been. Talk to us about the importance of missile defense given the rocket threat in the region.
Well, absolutely, and as Tammy said, my heart and our prayers are with the families who right now, there's rocket attacks that are ongoing right now. So we need to be vigilant and we need to be in prayer. And I am so impressed by the young men and women. We visited an Iron Dome battery when I was there, and seeing these teenagers making decisions, split-second decisions, to intercept these rockets. Thousands of rockets aimed at Israel. The one yesterday, about 75-mile range north of Tel Aviv. This is like we haven't seen before. That threat is very real every day. So some of the partnership that's happening between Rafael and Raytheon is actually in my district, or in my state in Arizona, continuing to partner together for Iron Dome, David Sling, and now the Army is moving forward because there's real-world experience every single day, every single year in Israel as to the effectiveness. We need to continue to strengthen that partnership, grow, learn from the lessons that are happening on the ground with the IDF to make sure that we protect Israel and all the citizens against these awful terrorist attacks.
I mean, Senator Duckworth, it's a combat zone. You know more about combat than everybody in this room put together. How do you feel about this moment and what's facing the state of Israel?
Well, I think that there's an existential threat to the state of Israel, and it's not just this moment, but it's every single day from the founding of Israel. And this is why we must remain strongly allied with Israel. Look, I was hit by a rocket-propelled grenade. I know better than most what rockets do to a human body, and this is why I think it is incredibly important that we in the Senate, we in the legislature, support Israel, support Israel's defensive capabilities. This is why I am calling for more sales of defensive countermeasures for Israel so that they can truly protect the people.
And Senator McSally, you also flew combat missions and have set historic records for women capability in combat, and you know the region very well. Talk to us for a minute about one player in the region, Iran, and the impact that Iran has in the wider Middle East.
Look, Iran is the largest state sponsor of terrorism in the world and continues to be an existential threat to Israel, and we need to stop them from being a threat in the region. I did not support the crappy Iran deal. Sorry, I'm a fighter pilot, and I talk like one. And I supported the Trump administration getting out of that deal. As you all know, it didn't address their missile capabilities, their ballistic missile capabilities, their maligned activities in the region, their support to the terrorist organizations of Hamas and Hezbollah, and support to the awful Assad regime. Across the way, they want to just have a bridge to be a threat to Israel, and we need to stop them. So pulling out of the deal was the right thing to do. And I'm disappointed in our European allies for them trying to find a workaround, because they are the real threat in this region, and we need to squeeze the vice grip tighter and tighter on them, using all elements of national power, economic, diplomatic, deterrence, whatever it takes to stop that threat from Israel.
And Senator Duckworth, your perspective on Iran and the threat that Iran poses in the region to the United States.
Oh, I think that the Iranian regime is trying very hard to oppose America and our efforts in the region, and of course Israel. I think there's 4 specific things we can do. I think we need to increase diplomatic efforts to publicly condemn and coordinate, even with the Gulf Council, a public condemnation of what Iran is trying to do. I think we need to have greater intelligence sharing, both classified intelligence, but also I think we should release some unclassified information to educate the world on what Iran is doing. I think the American people don't understand what Iran is trying to do here, and we need to get that information out. I think we need greater military cooperation with Israel. That means greater joint training exercises. Again, I talked about the increased sales of defensive countermeasures. And then we need to cut off the cash to all of the Iranian proxies that are out there through increased sanctions, the sanction regimes. You know, the illegitimate Hezbollah Also, you've got the recruit forces, all of these groups. Cut off the money, cut off the funding, increase the sanctions.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is a model of bipartisanship. 2 women combat veterans, pilots, who show that you can achieve any height when you work together. Thank you very much, Senator McSally, Senator Duckworth.
Thank you, everyone.